We're good? Okay. So, if you pay attention to any of my other content, you might know that I ran my first marathon last fall and it pushed me to my physical limits, obviously. But what I didn't realize that would happen in this 5 month training process is how much I would be pushed mentally and grow mentally as well. So, today I want to talk about 7 life changing lessons that I learned during my marathon training. If you're thinking about running a marathon, do it. It'll help you grow in so many ways that you can't even imagine. Lesson one, we can push through hard shit and we are capable of so much more than we realize. Running is hard. Running 10 miles is really hard. Running 20 miles and over is psychotic. However, it really taught me that mental fortitude is everything. About 15 miles into the race, I started to get really bad foot pain, and I thought, fuck, how am I gonna finish this race? I have over 11 miles to go still. But there was no way I was giving up. I had trained for over 5 months. I was finishing that race no matter how much it hurt. It was also my goal to finish in under 5 hours. At first, my pacing was way under my goal mark. I was doing amazing. But as my feet and my soul started to hurt, I started to slow down a bit. As you can imagine, by mile 20, I was really struggling. I was starting to get nauseous. I was starting to walk a bit. So, side note, some races have pacers, which is basically a person who holds up a sign of a time and they're tasked with finishing in that amount of time. For example, the 4 hour pacer will hold a sign that says 4 hours, and it's their job to finish in exactly 4 hours. So, back to my marathon, as I was starting to die a bit after 20 miles, the 5 hour pacer people snuck up behind me. They started getting closer and closer, and I was like, shit, if I want to get this goal, I have to push through. I have to keep going. I have to stop walking. I ended up finishing right in the nick of time in 4 hours, 58 minutes, and 18 seconds. Even though I was in so much pain, I pushed myself. There was also a lot of training runs that sucked, where I was tempted to end early and just go home. There was one in particular that sticks out in my mind. It was 7 miles long. I'm going to reference it a couple times. My watch had died. I had to download an app to track the run. The weather wasn't great. I was running late for something. I wanted to go home so bad, but I didn't because I knew I would be disappointed in myself if I cut it early. This process really showed me how resilient I am when I'm pushed to the point of wanting to give up. So many people said, I don't know how you do it. You just do it. You just put one foot in front of the other. Same applies to you and any goal. Lesson two, we waste years putting off bucket list aspirations for no reason. Running a marathon has been on my bucket list since I was a trackie in high school. So it's been sitting on there for about 10 years. There were a few times in my 20s where I would do some research about it. I would think about it, but thought, nah, that's too hard. I don't want to get into that now. Spoiler alert, it was hard, but I have been more than capable of doing it over the past 10 years. But it wasn't until I met someone who is now a good friend of mine who had told me her experience with running marathons and half marathons that made me really think, wow, if she could do that, why don't I do it now? After first meeting her a few days later, I randomly decided to run my first half marathon with only 2 months to train. That's not that long of a training period, but I made it work. Then, after my first half marathon in 2023, I signed up for my first full marathon in 2024 before I got too afraid and backed out. And I can say now I'm so happy I approached this bucket list item, even though it was really hard. And there's no reason that you can't approach your bucket list items. They might seem like mountains, but you can move mountains. Lesson three, we have different energy levels every single day, and perspective is everything. No matter how in shape I was, there were certain days where my runs were just so hard. I couldn't run faster, I just didn't have it in me. This made me realize that this applies to all areas of life, especially my business. There are certain days where I'm feeling more inspired and creative to be more productive, and this can be applied to your area of work as well. Certain days will be more energetic and productive, and that's perfectly fine. Don't beat yourself up on the days that this isn't the case. Especially if you're a woman, your cycle plays into this, so give yourself grace. On the other hand, perspective is everything. So I just told you about that 7 mile training run that was really difficult for me to finish, that I almost quit. During that run, I had such a negative perspective. I kept thinking that normal people don't do this, and I wish I could run normal people distances like 2 or 3 miles. I was having a giant pity party for myself in my head as if I didn't sign up for it myself. 2 days after that run, I had a 15-mile run, which was the longest distance I had ever run at that point, and I had an amazing perspective for this run. I was so proud of myself for running further than I ever had run before. I had an amazing time, and that run went by so much faster, even though it was more than double the distance of that 7 mile run. Remember that you have so much power and control over your thoughts. You have the power to either feed the complaining or negativity or to empower yourself. Lesson 4, celebrate all of your wins along the way, no matter how big or small. I made sure to celebrate every time I did my longest run yet. I remember after my 15-mile run specifically, I made it a point to celebrate. I was so proud of myself and feel like I already won the race, even though the race itself was over 11 miles longer than that run. From this point forward of my training, I would have a beer after my longest run. I would tell people about how proud of myself I was for running this distance. I would celebrate along the way rather than after the race itself. It's so easy to get so caught up and obsessed with our big goal that we forget to celebrate these smaller accomplishments. All wins deserve to be celebrated. Lesson number 5, gratitude of my support. Running can be extremely lonely. You're running for hours by yourself unless you have a training buddy. I didn't realize how much I would be leaning on people during this process, especially Gennaro, my fiance, who want to come say hi. No. But you could be like behind the camera. He's behind the camera producing this right now. But he would get me food and anything I needed after these runs where my legs hurt a lot. He would constantly say, "You're a winner," and make me feel so good about myself. He made me realize what an amazing thing I was doing and was really my number one hype man. Also, telling my friends and family about my runs and feeling them being proud of me was really helpful and rewarding as well. Not to mention the people who drove 2 to 3 hours to watch me run the race. We love them. And I ran the marathon with one of my childhood best friends. It made it so much less lonely, so much more fun, and just amazing to share this experience with someone so important in my life. I also was a part of a running group on Facebook, which was nice because I was able to ask any questions I needed to, as well as my friend I'd mentioned earlier that had already run marathons. I was going to her constantly with questions. So it was just so nice to have these various support systems in my training process. Don't be afraid to lean on your support systems in general. You don't have to run a marathon to lean on your support and show gratitude towards them. Lesson 6, we are unreasonably hard on ourselves. The amount of times that I beat myself up when I didn't reach my time expectations is insane. Especially considering that in the beginning of my training, I was fighting back an injury. I twisted my foot and I was still being hard on myself when I would run a bit slower. I would constantly compare my training times of my full marathon to my half marathon, even though with the half marathon, I had no injuries and I was just breezing through. Also, after my training peaked, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So, to give you some context, the last 3 weeks of my training plan, you taper, which is basically you run shorter distances to make your legs fresh for the race. And during this process, I just felt like I wasn't doing enough and I was hard on myself. On top of this, my feet weren't feeling great. I think I had a stress fracture, which is probably why I had so much pain during the marathon, but oh well. But I ran even less than my training plan recommended. I did the bike to help my feet rest. And I just felt like I wasn't doing enough because I was used to doing so much more, which is insane because this is literally the point of tapering. If you're going for a really big goal, it could be so easy to be hard on yourself because what you're doing is really hard. Try not to. Instead, give yourself credit for doing something really amazing. Lesson 7, it really is a marathon, not a sprint. In the times that I would be hard on myself, I would remember this famous saying: not doing well on one run won't affect my marathon. That was just a block, that was just a small piece of my training program. This same thing can be applied to all of life, which is why this saying is so famous. If you feel like you're failing, first of all, I hate this word. I don't believe failure is real. I think it's learning and redirecting. But, anyways, if you feel like you're failing, this is just a small part of your story. It's about all the experiences combined that will help get you to where you're meant to be, to your finish line. Thank you for listening. I am so grateful for my marathon experience. As hard as it was, as much as it hurt. If you have any questions about the marathon, the race itself, please ask in the comments below. I would love to talk about it. It was literally my personality for 5 months. But as always, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for you, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.